Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs and welcome to another video of mine. If you're new around here, please subscribe, hit your bell notification button and please like the video. I'm delighted to be welcomed by former League of Ireland player Robbie Martin, who's actually played with UCD, Longford Town and Dundalk. Robbie, how are you? You well?
Good. I played for Drogheda for a bit as well, actually.
Oh, did you play for Drogheda as well? Yeah, I just happened to learn this today. It's funny, isn't it?
I pretty much finished with Drogheda, yeah. So I had some bad injuries at that stage. I had back surgery when I joined Dundalk. Jeez, I can't remember. I had back surgery at Dundalk, and then I tried. Alan brought me up to Drogheda, but I was never fit. I probably wasn't fit from the age of 26, to be honest with you, for sure. That's a whole different story we don't get into.
My research didn't actually mention Drogheda, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I'd say Drogheda have written that out of their history books. But and that's the challenges. That's funny enough. It's ironic. There's also a lot of people, and it's amazing what clubs and what different experiences have in different clubs, and some very good and some unfortunately not as good. And again, even the topic we're talking about today, like the journey of playing semi-professional, professional football in Ireland and at any level, it just has those ups and downs, and it has those highs and lows, and you need to be incredibly lucky to get a career from start to finish, which doesn't have really low lows. But the high highs always make up for it, and that's what I always say to the kids that are playing today or looking to get into it. As much as the topic today we're going to talk about it, as much as the challenges they're experiencing now at 13, 14, 15, I kind of say, genie lads, this is only preparing you for when you're 19, 20, 21 or 30, 31, 32, 33, because it doesn't get easier. It genuinely doesn't. And I think the nature of Irish football and the reality around the 12 months, even when we were playing the 8-month contracts or the 7-month contracts, which would have been the season contracts, you're always possibly, if you need to be thinking about paying bills and paying mortgages, you're always thinking about that next club or that next contract. Slightly different from myself, because I always kept semi-professional and I always knew work was a priority, and my job, my full-time job, and football was always a bonus. But that in itself creates challenges, because and like we spoke of, and like the challenges now today, you're always semi-professional, and if you are playing professional clubs or professional teams and their preparation, Derek Pender worked in AIB as well, and I remember pinging him the day his last League of Ireland game, and I kind of looked and I went, geez, I wonder, is he working today? And I looked online, and there he was online, and I gave him a quick mail, and I'm thinking in my head, there's Derek, played whatever 20 odd years, 600, 700, I don't know how many games he's played, and there he is working the morning of his last club game for his club, and that doesn't happen in any other country. That's the reality of it. It's not like that anywhere else. And I think the challenges we have kind of from an underage setup mirror that, because that's the reality of Irish football. It isn't going to pay mortgages. It isn't a kind of lifelong occupation. It's never going to be that. So we need to ensure that kids are developed young enough from a football and a technical and all that good stuff, but definitely from the education point of view, and how do we marry those two things together. And that's what I'm really interested in, and I'm keen on understanding how other countries and other clubs or other countries, but particularly other sports, have done that and done it really well, and marry those two things between education and sport, and particularly soccer for us. So yeah, no, it's a mad out journey going through League of Ireland, but I'm delighted to be back involved with kids. That's where my passion always has. I kind of said it to myself and my father. Paul look after our team, and he's obviously chairman of League, and we kind of made a call a long time ago. Now, we might break our ducks because of COVID and stuff, but we kind of said we get them to 14s, 15s, we start again. We go back into the academy. After that, they become young men, and you kind of let them off, let them look after themselves, to give them that pathway up. So yeah, delighted to chat.
And obviously you're involved with Leagues Up United, as you mentioned there. You actually played for them when you were a kid as well. But we're mainly talking obviously about the Dublin District Schoolboy League today and the challenges it faces, and particularly now, as we pointed out before we started, with COVID and things like that. But what's your role in Leagues Up, first of all, Robbie, so the viewers know there?
Yeah, so I suppose I finished up playing kind of 2008 maybe, I think 2009 maybe, and I had obviously played schoolboy with Leagues Up. So Leagues Up would have been traditionally a club which if you're familiar with Leagues Up and Newt Lucan, like in terms of population, it's relatively big. We're obviously on the outskirts of Dublin, so there's that kind of I suppose this attachment to the likes of the central Dublin teams where you'd have 3 or 4 big teams. So we would have had always a really strong group of kids that would always be, which would be brought through with the club. Now, I think even the best people involved in the club in the early days would be kind of open enough to say that without necessarily too much investment in coaching or that type of high level coaching or really kind of focusing on elite. It was more to do with enjoyment, fun, getting as many kids involved locally in the club. And we do a kind of wall of fame in the club, and we have the likes of Ray McGauley and stuff who for us within Leaksop and people across Leaksop would recognise them, and Paul Keir should be another one, were people who dedicated their lives to providing football to the community, and whether it would be little kind of mini league tournaments or summer tournaments or Saturday morning kind of academy sessions, probably before their time, to be fair. So there was always an outlet for kids. The club was always there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose that's the argument you have with a lot of people at the moment, there was never really an emphasis on that elite. But you would always get teams, say 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, playing at a relatively high level. And inevitably what would happen at 12, 13, 14 is that the 3, 4 good players would usually go on to a better DDSL team, the Belvederes, the Cherry Orchard. And we're not alone on that. That was the journey, and that's the story for a lot of DDSL clubs, and it still is, and clubs right across the country. So I would have left possibly, I think 13, I would have went to Belvedere. I would have been of the original age group. So I was 3 days too old to play the year below, because it used to be August to August, the way it worked on the 27th of July. So I went to Belvedere, and immediately I knew, gee, it's tougher, it's more competitive. I'm not playing with my mates, I'm playing with kids from all over the country and all over the town and all over the city, and hard kids. Like, I was a bit of a soft kid, and I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm in an environment here that's struggle. And luckily I had 2 great managers. I had Jerry Smullen and Jerry Fitzgerald, and they realised I had potential, but at the same time, they couldn't give me the game time I wanted. So I was there for the 12 months, and I wasn't sure. I was kind of in a bit of limbo, and then the age group changed. So I ended up being able to play that age group again, and it was January to January. And Jerry and a fella called Matt Halpin took over the year below, and from that moment on, I was able to flourish, and I did really well. And we had a great team. We had the likes of Wes Houlihan, we had Gavin Bulger and Alan McNally, who played League of Ireland. We had a really strong team. We had 3 or 4 lads that went across to England. Fred Murray, I think he's some sort of celebrity physio now, I was reading last week. But we had a really good team, and the majority of our lads stepped into League of Ireland. And it was a really nice journey. So what I did is I had toyed with the idea of going to England. I'd been over 3 or 4 times. I'd been on quite a lot, and I had a contract offer from Ipswich, and I was never really, if I'm being honest, in my heart to heart, I was a bit of a family home bird. I struggled with the concept of moving away. I probably, if I'm being honest with myself, thought the step up was going to be too much, to be honest. And I had at the same time gone and done the UCD scholarship trials, got the scholarship. And for me then, I was kind of happy I was at home. There was an education there, as much as any of the lads who went to the UCD at the time would say. Like Gavin Whelan was in my class as well, that played with Trotter. So Gavin were good pals, and we went to college a bit, but we played a lot of football, to be honest with you. But it was great, and I was at home, and we had some great years with UCD, with like Paul Doolin. But I suppose the moral of the story for me is that journey was by no means
easy.
I suppose planned out for me. It definitely wasn't easy. No, it absolutely wasn't easy. And as I said, a Leaksop boy going into Belvedere with big personalities and young lads who would be well able to look after themselves was a challenge. But it was one I enjoyed, and it's one when I talk to parents today and we have this battle around where do you leave, do you stay local, do you move into a club? There's absolutely 2 sides to it at all. And I've heard a couple of comments during the week or the last couple of weeks where people saying it's all negative at the moment. And it probably is all negative. I appreciate it's all negative, but I don't think it has to be. And I don't think there is an us and them. And there never has been from what we've tried to do with Leaksop. It's never been my view on the League of Ireland as a general. Like we are the biggest advocates for the League of Ireland. I am. My father, Paul, played with AC Milan against Athlone back in the 7, whatever year it was, and he still lives off it today. My brother played with Sean McGrovers and all those clubs, and so we are League of Ireland advocates in our family, and our club as in Leaksop, our aim and our goal has always been developing kids to get to that level. England is another step, and England is another journey, and it's an incredibly difficult journey to get to, and it's, to be honest, an unrealistic journey, and that's just being
especially
honest.
Now, I think, because back in the day, like players, I know what you call it has changed with Brexit and that, but back in the day, Irish players could make it maybe a little bit easier in England as well than maybe perhaps they can now, because a lot of those academies have so many players from all over the world as well, which probably makes it a little bit more difficult perhaps as well.
Well, I think you only have to look at the English players who have had to go away to the likes of Germany to get involved, to come back. And like, if you're looking at players like, I don't know, Jadon Sancho or Bellingham, I know he went for big money, but even some of the, I suppose, less well-known players have had to go into Europe to come back. And I think, I absolutely agree. I think fundamentally, if you are good enough, you'll get opportunities. And I say that to the kids, no matter what happens now and in 2 or 3 years, you will always get the opportunities. I think the challenge we have, and what I've seen and kind of what I've noticed over the last 10 years, and particularly since this League of Ireland piece has kicked off, really, it's definitely put more emphasis on everything. And I think that's something that was needed. I think the reality of the best country kids having to go up to Dublin to play elite football is wrong. And I've always thought that. I never think that one. And I remember Alan Cawley travelling up from Sligo, Fred from Tipperary. He had kids coming from all over the country to come up to Belvedere on a Saturday, and they mightn't have been able to get up during the week to train, but just to play, just because they knew the 3 or 4 or 5 big scouts from across the water were going watching the big Dublin games on a Saturday. So they knew just to be in that kind of eyesight, they had to be playing in the Dublin League. And I speak to the lads involved in Waterford, the Gagan. Like, I understand the challenges they had. I don't agree though with the DDSL versus the League of Ireland, because for us, we weren't traditionally a strong DDSL club in leagues. We never have been. But what we felt over the last, to be honest, 10 years, we've heavily invested in our infrastructure. So we have, in my opinion, as good facilities as there is in the country. We have our own clubhouse, we have our own land, we have our own Astro, we have our smaller side Astros. Over the last 12 months, we've gone and built the strength and conditioning area. We have football, tennis areas. We've 4 grass senior pitches. So and this is all, and it's not me by any stretch of imagination. We have a committee of really dedicated people who have given up their time for free, without money. It's all voluntary, as most people know skill about football, because we are very much dedicated to developing kids. And our ethos has always been, like, we get kids. And so my little lad, Ollie's 3.5. So I'm back in the academy because he started. And so we have kids from 3.5 coming right up through. And we've decided, and we made that call 10 years ago, that we didn't want to lose the kids at 11, 12, 13 to the big Dublin squads, the big Dublin teams, because we wanted to be one of them. We tasted All-Ireland success with Kenny Malloy's team 3 years ago, and with my lads 2 years ago, winning All-Ireland. And that was for us the first 2 for the club. But for us, that was, you know what, this is achievable. And I think the challenge I have with the underage setup is, there's a couple of challenges I really have, but my biggest one is the infrastructure and the investment that these clubs have made to create infrastructures to build the environment to train these kids in, and that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I would challenge anyone who tells me it does. I know Shamrock Rovers is a bit of an outlier, but there was a piece there with Rosestone, and that worked, and it's worked really successfully, and obviously with the ground within Tallaght. But they are as close to me as the model all clubs should aspire to. The other club, which I think all League of Ireland clubs should have aspired to, is Kevin's, because Kevin's themselves invested in land, they invested in facilities, they invested in coaching, and over the last 15 years, they have created, in my opinion, the strongest schoolboy section club ethos in the country. And I know it's little things. We go out to play Kevin's, and I know Rose has done it, but they stick a little picture of your crest up on the dressing room door. And they're very small touches, but to me that creates professionalism from such a young age that my kids see that, and all of a sudden there's a lift, there's a G up. And I don't feel enough League of Ireland clubs have really taken a step back and said, right, are we invested from the age of 5? Have we invested in facilities? And you hear stories of clubs across the country training on rented pitches, training in parks, training in public parks. I would be struggling to put a finger on many League of Ireland clubs who have own their own training facility with the correct infrastructure, whether it's gyms, whether it's Astro, whether it's grass, that they can use. So that's my first issue. And I think allowing the ownership of underage kids from the age of 13, but putting them into an environment which, in my opinion, isn't fit for purpose, is incorrect. And I think if you talk to most people involved, and I listened to Alan Caffrey last week on the Alan Cawley, I know you're probably competitors with podcasts and everything, but Alan was brilliant. He was brilliant. And he's someone that I think that's a man who should be involved in planning the future for Irish football. And it's no disrespect, and I know I probably get in trouble, but I call out rude doctors a lot, but I genuinely would really love to know, what has he done for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years? Like, he's in since 2013, someone told me. 7 years. Like, we're not seeing anything of what was promised. He's a technical director.
Collecting a wage. I'm not saying he's doing nothing, but it's almost like it's
quite a big wage.
Hiding something, isn't it? What's that?
It's quite a big wage, I've been led to believe. It's quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're in Barack Obama, President of the United States type range of salary.
That's half of the problem as well. You've got people getting big wages there, and wondering what they're doing, what way's the infrastructure. And you're right, you touched on the Irish football. Like, there is a bit of a connect between a lot of the DDSL clubs, or clubs like, Avondale, Cork, or whatever, between them and League of Ireland clubs. But you're right. It should be all connected. That's the point. Completely. It
should be, yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be an us versus them either way, because it's Irish football. You mentioned Irish football
absolutely
there. That's what it's down to at the end of the day. Like, it's Irish football. Everything will improve if those structures are in place, you would think.
Absolutely. And like, it's not a short-term fix. And that's the reality. And maybe that's why people who are really close to it are a bit doom and gloom at the moment, because they realise you're talking 15, 20 years to get this right. And to me, it starts with, as I said, ring fencing money for League of Ireland clubs, and I'm absolutely happy for it to be government funded. There's billions. I work in a bank, so I can't be holding my hands up, but there's billions of euros out there to bail out banks and bail out all these other people. Surely there's a pot of investment there to say, listen, each of these League of Ireland clubs are given a ring of investment to go and build themselves facilities, and they can be local facilities, they can be facilities they can rent out to the local if it's gyms, but build that, and that's an epicenter. And I've seen with the GAA over the last number of years, and even the rugby, they establish themselves in a community, and that's how you build up the support. And like we within Leagues already see it. Like, if we go and play a cup, you get lots of locals coming up. We've loads of businesses that want to get involved now because they see the work that's going into it, and that's been the disconnect for always. And I don't want to harp on about League of Ireland clubs, but it's very, very difficult, because their goal and their aim has always been to win leagues and to compete and to get into Europe. And if we as Leagues or Joey's or Kevin's or get 50, 60, 100 grand to do something, do you never, like, and I know there's money goes missing and all this, but the reality is nearly every club is trying to do it the right way. That money goes back into an investment. The reality is, if that goes into a Pats or a Rovers or a Dundalk, it goes into paying wages. And that is the reality. It's going into paying someone's wages, and it's not getting invested back into the grassroots. And we struggle as a club where we say, well, we do a lot on our own back. We're providing a service because we love it and we're involved. We want to coach kids, but introducing this setup to say that at 13, you are not good enough, or you are not going to be able to provide these kids with what we perceive as elite coaching. They need to leave and they need to play at a high level, and we just don't agree with that. And I don't think majority of underage League of Ireland clubs believe in it either, and that's the reality. When you talk to them, it's been a hand that's been forced on them. And I think, had step one been,
why do you think that is the case though, Robbie? Why do people actually
cynically?
What's the reason? Like,
the cynic in me thinks that this mythical millions and hundreds of thousands of euro that allegedly was going into DDSL clubs coming across from England, that is the reality. That to me, I genuinely, the fact that he started at 13 and the original financial kind of incentive starts. So I think from 13 up, you start to get compensation. So this whole development charge, that starts at 13. So there was no surprise that you start getting paid from 13 and a kid goes across the water, and all of a sudden a League of Ireland club, who, as we all know, over the last, I'd say 50 years, to be honest with you, have had financial problems. If you're able to give a League of Ireland club 15, 20, 30 grand for 2 or 3 kids every year, that's helping. And I think that was and that's my cynical head. Okay, someone might beg or differ. I absolutely appreciate there is a standard of coaching for the majority of the League of Ireland underage clubs, which is very good. there is an emphasis on more.
It has improved that in the last number of years, in fairness, hasn't it? You can see the young players coming through. But again, some of those young players have come through the likes of Kevin's or whatever the clubs.
I'll give you a great example. So young Andrew, who's over in Norwich. So everyone's talking about Andrew. Andrew started in our academy at 5 years of age, was developed by us up until 16, won an All-Ireland and went to Norwich, from Leeds to Norwich. Okay? And he's now playing first team at Norwich. Now, listen, I'm not saying we've done anything crazy. He's Kenny Malloy, he's Robbie Fay, who's looked after him in League. But obviously the quality of coaching he's got, and bear in mind, we've young Josh Grew, who's over in Norwich as well. We've Harry, who's in Derby, and we've Gabriel, who's doing really well at Stoke, all on that same team with those same managers.
Did they go straight from League over there, by the way, Robbie?
So yes, 3 of them did. One of them went to Dundalk for 6 months and signed from Dundalk, and the money went to Dundalk. So that's the reality.
So hang on a second. Signed for Dundalk for 6 months, and all the money went to Dundalk, and Leeds.
Well, the negotiations were done with Dundalk, and we didn't get any money. So that's how. Well, that's. And
you had him up to the age of what?
Up to 16.
16. So from 5 to 16 or 3, whatever.
Yeah,
5.
So he spent 6 months with Dundalk.
Oh my God!
He went
that's
over
ridiculous.
to,
that highlights the ridiculous nature of that situation.
Well, it does, because it does for lots of reasons. It gives me, to me, it proves 2 things. To me, it proves those 2 kids or those 4 kids didn't need to go across and play Elite League of Ireland. They didn't have to play Elite. The quality of coaching they were getting was obviously good enough to get across the water. But again, and this is where the battle starts between us and them. And I actually don't want those battles, because I don't think they work. But I don't feel the current structure, in my opinion, works, because you hear, and I know I spoke to Johnny Martin, my brother, who's with Dundalk, or who's with Drogheda or Longford, thinking all his clubs here. he spoke to my kids last week, because what you also have is the dropout years, which is gas. This is when we really just make complete hames of it. So we do a couple of things. We alter the calendar years, that the same age group plays between 2 different, like, so the League of Ireland and the DDSL play at different times of the year. One is summer, one is winter. Someone makes that decision. It definitely wasn't Leagues up making that decision. I know they talk about, and this is my other gripe, councils and league councils and league executive meetings and and I'm asking myself, you have how many people in a room meeting up in the Westbury, or what are they doing? Like the communication to us in the last 12 months from the SFAI, the DDSL, has been a government announcement. Oh, this is the government announcement. Let's see what happens next. Why can't the DDSL or the SFAI say, okay, lads, you're back on the 26th, 29th of April. If a month from then we can go competitive, we start in June. If 2 months from then we go competitive, we start in July. So like in every other business, I work in the bank, every other business in the country is saying, okay, give me a roadmap that we then know what the planning is. It's not reactive. And it seems that there might be 50, 60 people on these councils. They're announcing presidents and presidents of presidents and new council members. And I'm saying, why? What function do they serve in Irish football? But create more blurred lines, more trouble, and the amount of trouble the SFAI competition, which I think is great. I think there's a couple of people in the SFAI, in the FAI, in the League of Ireland, who I think are brilliant football people. But then there's a whole other group of people, and I question, what are they doing? What's their role? Because it's definitely not in the interest of the kids. It's definitely not worrying about kids. And if someone tells me creating 2 calendar years, creating complications on transfer windows, registration windows, like someone told me they had to register the League of Ireland underage kids there 2 months ago. They haven't played football in 16, 15 months. So there's so much above the water that people like myself and good people at the grassroots level have no control over, and you're kind of being dictated to around what rules are, around what happens next. But to say to me, you at leaks of 12s, which will happen to us now. So you've a group of lads of 12, you've brought up from 5. The majority of them, or a good, say they're a good strong, our 12s are a decent little team. 8, 9, 10, 12 we'll get phone calls from League of Ireland clubs. Come up and train, come up and see you get on. We might lose 7 or 8 of them. They'll go up and play. So all of a sudden we have a 12 going into 13s that have lost half the team. So firstly, you have a group of 13-year-olds who immediately been told you're elite, and they think, I'm elite, great, I'm 13. And you have a half the other side who think, shit, I'm not elite. Oh no, like, I'm obviously not good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and it says that the ones that are called elite, Robbie, you know, it kind of, I'm not saying it gives them a big head necessarily, but it kind of suggests they've made it and they're 13. You might think that at that age a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen many 13-year-olds, right? And this is what I always say to people. I tell you something, I'd want you to pick my lotto numbers. If you can tell me at 13 years of age what this kid is going to be when he's 20 years of age, because it is impossible. You come up a week and someone is 2 foot taller than he was the week previous. They're at that age. Everything is developing and growing. So that's the first challenge. So immediately, and I'm not in any way qualified in mental health or anything like that, and I try and veer away from it. But that cannot be good for a 13-year-old to be judged. And I know people say you get judged and everything, you get judged for skill, but there's a time and place for that. And if you watch or follow anyone in Europe, that does not exist. That eliteness, that creating that divide at that young age does not exist. The next thing is that you then say, okay, play at 13s. We pick up the pieces. We say, all right, let's fill up the team with kids. Let's see what else is out there. And then at 14, they're all expected to flood back in to the league because there's no under 14 League of Ireland. So then you get a raft of kids that have said, you know what, I'm after being released under 13. They said I'm not good enough. Can I join your team? And I say, well, the group of lads who didn't get away the first time, do I have to release a couple of them lads? So then you're in that minefield, and then it happens again. And then you've got 15s, and this is when the biggest challenge happens. You get to the kids that are 15, and releasing a 15-year-old, if anyone involved in football would understand, that's game over.
Where did they go from there in the release, say, from leagues? Where did they go?
They don't go anywhere for 2 or 3 reasons. The first one is pride takes over. And that's and I'm being honest, pride takes over. I've given it a shot. They told me at 15 I'm not good enough. I'm not bother going back playing DDSL. I'm never going to make it. I'll do something else. And that's the reality. You see it. The second thing is you have mommy and daddy. Right, let's try GA now. Let's try rugby now. Let's try whatever else is out there. Instead of letting them do all that before this, they've concentrated on something. They've been told at 15 you're not good enough. They drop away. So we will see a massive divide between 15 to 17 of kids that have dropped away. Because what you're finding is you're getting a small fraction of those kids at 15 that are being asked play above, play for the 17. So you're getting 4, 6 at most clubs saying play above yourself. You're getting everyone in between saying I'm either very, very mentally strong and I'm going to work and get back involved. And what we're seeing and what we try to say to our kids is you start getting all those kids that were never in the loop till now emerging. Because they've never had that up and down. They've just kept working to get involved. They've always seen it as the unachievable. So that's why we're very keen that we have to keep coaching these kids regardless of what's going on above. Because I can guarantee you, and Johnny did a bit of chat with my kids last week, and it was incredible the amount of League of Ireland kids playing this year, even in the last 4 or 5 years, who had been through the mill, had gone out of it, and either gone into a different, maybe weaker League of Ireland underage setup, or had gone back into Leinster senior football, or even local amateur football, and had come back into League of Ireland because they'd gone off, they'd played, they'd enjoyed it again. They went, you know what, I actually enjoy football. So it's a minefield. There's lots to be talked about. There's no black and white, and I would say that to anyone. I love chatting to anyone involved in League of Ireland because it's always an open conversation. Because usually it's the best, the common goal from both sides, especially when I'm talking to myself, is that I want to watch Ireland. I want to watch Ireland qualify for European Championships. I want to watch our young kids get to the top level. I want to see them playing in the Premiership. And at the moment, in my opinion, that model is not going to do that. It won't. It won't start. Not this starting at 13's nonsense. If you have a real interest, you start them at 5. You make all the League of Ireland clubs invest in facilities. You make them all create academies at the age of 5, because that to me builds up the local community and that affiliation with a club. By default, and it has to be a natural progression, local families, kids will start going to those games and those clubs games. But at present, it doesn't work. And if you think about the historic DDSL under 13, 14 league, you would have had 12 Premier teams and you would have had 12 major teams. The guts of 20 kids a squad, 16. You're talking the guts of maybe 300-400 kids playing against each other, which to me is elite. You also would have had a similar in Cork. All the regions would have had, and I know they would say, well, actually, the Midlands mightn't be as strong as DDSL and you're not getting the same competition. But up to a certain point, there's competition. The way it is now, you've 3 or 4, you've Kevin's, sorry, well, you've Bows, who are Kevins. You've Rovers, who are Rovers. You've Pats, who are the best of Belvo, Cherry Orchard, and they pick up the pieces. Four of my kids are gone to Pats. You've then Bray, who are Joey's.
Yeah.
You've Cabo, who are Cabo. So I'm thinking,
yeah,
you've gone from 24 competitive Dublin teams to about 6. Why? Like, you've just...
What do you actually, Robbie, what do you think about the actual links, let's say? Kevin, everyone knows Kevins and Bowls, and obviously it works very well for Bohemians, clearly, because look at the amount of players they've got coming through the team. I think Ross Tierney currently is playing very well. Didn't he come from Kevins as well, possibly? But there's a load of them here. There is a load of them. Hey, are they good, those links, do you think, overall?
I don't think they're necessary. So we brought in Stephen Gray and Robbo and a couple of lads from Rovers last year just to talk about football. What's going on? Like Roachy, the chairman of Rovers, rang me one day and said, listen, Robbie, we have a kid down. I'm not sure if he's there. Would you have a look at him? Like, the majority of people who are into football or who care about schoolboy football are already making those connections between League of Ireland. There's already a massive respect there. So, like, I've Darragh and Johnny at Longford, I've the lads in Waterford, I spoke to the Pats lads, so Pats has taken 4 or 5 of my kids over the last couple of years, but I was never reluctant to lose them. I didn't want to lose them. I didn't think they should be going at that young age, but it was never he's mine, I'm keeping. It was like, yeah, brilliant, right, look after him. And same with Rovers, look after the kids, because I've seen kids not looked after, and then thankfully to this day, touch wood, all the kids who I've lost have been looked after. But I know that's not the reality, and it won't be the reality for the next 2 or 3 years.
I think as well, Robbie, it's to do with the fact with, sorry, Robbie, across there. It's to do with the fact as well, let's say Bowes and Kevins, for example. Bowes know pretty much that a Pats or Shamrock Rovers can't get any of the Kevins' talent, let's say. There's a part of that as well that comes into it. Not just Bowes, by the way, I'm just mentioning them because people know about that link a lot more. Like, you know, Brave usually from St. Joseph's, for example.
Yeah, it's a very strange, like, the cynic in me would say Evan Ferguson played for Bowes' first team of 14 for one reason and one reason only. That when someone came knocking and when compensation was to be paid, he was a Bowes player. And I think, and the same with young Sheffy at Rovers playing senior football. It just creates a different... Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I do think the reality of registration ownership, and I know I spoke to Will Clark, and I know Will's gone in, and Will's brilliant. I like Will a lot. Like, I think he'll do a great job where he is. And we spoke previously around compensation, how that works. The reality of compensation to a league support, to a Joey's or to a Kevin's, goes a lot further than 10 grand to a Bowes, a Pats, or a Rovers. And that's
it's more likely they're going to invest in the wages for players.
Well, it is. I genuinely think so. Or grassroots, like, you're trying to encourage young coaches, and we do a kind of scheme where if a coach does his UEFA badges, we over a couple of years can pay him back. So he pays himself, and we give him, if he stays with us 2 or 3 years over that time, and it's kind of, it works for us because we get better quality coaches, the kids get better quality coaches, but they don't lose out on it. And I don't think that maybe can happen. So to answer the original question, we sat down, and we obviously would have had the opportunity to affiliate with clubs or to partnership. And I kind of said, you know what, I don't want my kids limited, because I don't think there's a need for me to say, we now go to Rovers, that's your path into a parent. See the way we affiliate, he can go with it. I would always say to a parent, it doesn't really matter who we are affiliated with. Your child will at a stage have to prove he's good enough to play. Exactly. And that's going to be his day. And if he's good enough, he will be picked up and he will play. If
he'll also have more of a choice in a way as well. Like,
well, it is. I know Rovers have put up a good bit of publicity recently, and I'm not going to call it publicity or PR, but because they've said they'll go into the teams, and I think that's a better partnership. And I've always been an advocate, and I've read about what they did in Belgium, and I'm not going to start saying, reading, quoting, but I think the model which has worked across a lot of European countries is that kids have been allowed to play locally, train locally, be with their pals, be in their communities, but are brought into these businesses and developed. And I think I was reading about what they did in Belgium, and I think after the '98 World Cup when they didn't qualify, and basically they set up centres of excellence. They allowed the kids to come in 3 days a week, but train with their own clubs 2 days a week, play with their clubs at the weekend, but also every second weekend kind of had competitive games. So they were getting the touches, they were getting the coaching, they were getting that extra bit, but they weren't being dragged away from the local clubs. Local clubs could keep developing kids, and that model worked. I think. And it's 11.
As you said, they keep playing with their friends. And that's one of the reasons why they get into it in the first place a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, and it's not cutthroat. And it's like you go up this week and you're involved. Yeah, but you're involved, but you're back. And then you see a kid beside you goes, oh, I want to be involved. But he's back with you. And you're both developing off each other. They've also developed, which I think our country is more responsible for than the FAI, is these sports schools. Like, there is no sports schools in this country. There's nowhere. I remember years ago, we went away with Pete Mann, and it was like a Leinster FA, a League of Ireland underage team. We played in Germany against Westphalia. I think it happens every year. The Leinster FAs, I think they're called. And we stayed in a sports hotel. And it was a hotel that it was sports teams were brought to, but during the day, like this was during the summer, but during the year it's a college. So it's secondary school for sports stars, or sports stars is the wrong word, but kids who are interested in sport. And across Belgium, I know, they set up 6 or 7 of these, so they're regional. So I go to Closh Kieran. So why can't we partner with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 secondary schools and say, can we create sports scholarship type schools that in the morning they can train, they get their education, and there's that balance. And I just think we're trying to create ways to get kids more touches of the ball, more better quality training. Yeah, we're thinking that that's going to work by giving it to League of Ireland clubs who at present will be the first to admit they do not have the resources or the infrastructure or the facilities to provide that. And
mental actually that you mentioned that, because it's mad to think that these days that's the case. I mean, a lot of the stuff you're saying in a funny way, you could talk about it 20 years ago. That's the funny thing, isn't it? And that's the scary thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is scary. It is. And
be honest with you,
I just think because it's so topical now, because the country's different forever with COVID, and I think there's definitely been a chance for people. I know obviously the lady book came out and lots of things were blown apart, and sometimes that happens and people forget. I think there is definitely more of an openness. And I listened to Harry McHugh during the weekend, and I listened to how he spoke about how the FAI staff at the level, at the kind of admin and the day-to-day, and I was just like, what has changed? Like, genuinely, what has changed? Like, because he's telling me about roles are being advertised while people are still in that role. And I'm thinking to myself, and I know people are saying, well, actually, it should be the best person to do the job. And he says, no, that's fair enough, but there's not many industries you work in where the job you're currently working in is advertised on you. And I think just how they treated those people, and they are like, I did my UEFA badges a couple of years ago, and the likes of Tom Moan, and they're like, we have brilliant people, like brilliant people, football people.
That's the horrible thing as well. Yeah, there is great.
Treated like Brian Kerr would be. I'd be in contact with Brian a little bit, just a little bit snippets, because he has the same thought to me. I don't know, Brian has different. There might be something with FAI, but like them type of people who we're not relying on, and we're bringing in someone like Rude Doctors to design a model which he based off a country like Holland, which is so far removed from Ireland in terms of our demographics, our urban sprawl. Like, we are a different country to them. Yeah. Like we have whatever 60%, 50-60% of the population living in Dublin. Like, it's mad that he thinks what he has implemented will make us better. It's just created divide. It's just created division. There's too many councils. There's too many leagues. There's too many affiliates.
The thing is, does he really think that? Does he really think that, or is it a case of, look, I'm getting well paid here, so whatever? I'm not saying it's the case, but there could be an element of that too. Like, that causes.
Like, if nothing else, even in a world which PR and spin does a lot, he's not even doing PR or spin. You just don't hear from him. There's no interaction. There's no, like, in a row 7 years, and the problem is Niall Quinn came in. I think that the general sense was he was gone. He was gone. He was moving to pastures new, and all of a sudden he gets a new contract. And you're like, oh, for what? What is he doing? So, and again, and this is the problem. I would love to sit with him. Not he would listen to me. He wouldn't talk to me. I'd just love to go, like, what do you think at present is working? Where do you think this model is going to bring us to? And when and what do you think is success? Because in any industry, there has to be a plan. There has to be, this is why this happens. And that's not happening. I think the likes of Alan Caffrey, I just think there's some really good people there. As I said, Will gone in. I would just cut that layer above. These leagues, these affiliates, these people that are involved in junior councils and senior councils. Like, we spoke in front when this whole thing kicked off. myself and Vinny Butler and a couple of lads from Salthill Devon, we went and spoke at Christmas. I can't remember the airport hotel, and it was just basically to say why we weren't comfortable with the League of Ireland under 13, our challenges. And I'm not being smart. There was a group of people there, there might have been 30, 40, and they all had jackets on, so they obviously all represented a league. So you always know someone represents a league because they wear a jacket with the league crest on it. And I was looking at them going, these couldn't give a hoot, what I'm saying. They couldn't care less. I'd say they were just going, what time's lunch at? And that is the reality. I don't know why some of these are even in roles, because I'm thinking to myself, are they genuinely interested in what's happening to these kids? Are they asking the kids, how you feel? How do you feel about being torn? Like, I go down to the club. We've done loads in the club, and we're so proud of it. It's really good, and we're going to do a proper piece on it when we finally finish. And I go down I go down most days at my lunch and stuff. My dad's always down there because he's retired and he's nothing better to do. And he's painting or he's fixing stuff. And he's done an unbelievable job, and like he's incredible. And he's getting his vaccination next week, so he can actually legally do some of this stuff because he's pretty sure he's breaking rules with going out. But I go down to the pitch, and we have a group of lads from my 2006 group. So we have young Luke Kerr, Matthew O'Hara, Shawnee Mackey, Alex Kearney. So those 4 lads with me, they're at Pats. So they're going to be playing Pats 15. I've Johnny Kerr, I've Keane Masterson, and I've Jake Whelan. They are my 3 kids. They're at Rovers. They're on playing Rovers 15. There's 3 kids there from UCD playing. And then there's about 5, 6, 7 of my Leaks Up lads still wearing their Leaks Up kit playing. And they get down there, and they're not supposed to, but we keep telling them you can't train, you can't kick, but they're doing it. And I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking they couldn't give a fly what team they play for.
No.
They're just going to play football. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. They just want to
at that age, like, it's just
at that age, they just want to play football. And I said it to them, because anyone who's gone to play at the next level within League of Ireland, it just gets a million times harder. And all that fun sometimes drifts away, and it becomes too professional and too much pressure. And I'm thinking, you're 15 years of age, why can't you not just enjoy yourself and play? But what's happened to them, they've been told, I don't think they finished the league in 4 years, between changing summer calendars, between finishing leagues early, between moving because of the League of Ireland, between COVID, obviously. There's just been different reasons why they actually haven't been able to finish a league. And you have 15-year-olds saying to you, who haven't been selected, for instance, for this year's League of Ireland, looking at me going, I don't think I'll do anything, Robbie. I think I'll pack it in. I think I'm sick of it now. And I'm saying,
you're 15 to be thinking of packing it in.
Just take a breather. Yeah, I'm just saying, take a breather. And thankfully, we've good people like Johnny and I know Dean Zamber, I think, spoke to the lads because they were on a long for call. And we're trying to give them as much sense as possible from people who know, who just say, just take a breather. There's lots and lots that can happen between now and 20 years of age. And
I think as well, they probably shouldn't stress whether they're going to make a League of Ireland club or make a Premier League club or whatever. Just play your football, and what will be will be. I think you're right. There's there is pressure there somewhere, isn't there? That's coming on them to make them feel like that.
Incredible pressure. More than I could have ever imagined. Yeah, and like it's probably a whole different podcast, and you or I are not educated enough in, but social media, like it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. And to see what I would have perceived when I was 13, 14 years of age, and I missed a sitter, and I came back, and my dad would be at me going, you missed a sitter, and I'd be saying, I missed a sitter, and I go into school the next day, and I'd say, yeah, no, played well, played all right, yeah, so, no, and now I'm watching, and the lads are like 50 bleeding comments, oh, you were brutal, you were great, he's brutal, he's crap, he's this, he's that, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't have been able to cope with that. I couldn't.
It wouldn't have been there. Like you'd have enough, as you say.
Your game is over. You switch off. Yeah, and I think the other part of that is because if they're not getting selected, it's you're not good enough. You're brutal, or they're edging to the side. Now I understand that social pressure that exists in football and dancing, music, and everything. That's life. I absolutely appreciate that, but I just don't feel we're equipping them well enough in the current model to actually tackle those types of challenges and those types of issues. And I think creating so-called hierarchy and eliteness at an age which isn't there's no need. There's no need. Like
your point is that you could have a player, Robbie, that hits 21 and he could be better than that player he wasn't as good as when he was 14 or 15 easily. It just goes like that at those ages. I mean, in any sport, by the way.
In any sport, it's been proved. Like, it's not me saying this. There's Laura one of the, I apologize, I forgot her first name. She shares lots of stuff on Twitter, and I follow her, and the studies are there. Like, I think at the last two underage European championships, like, I think there was over 60, 70, 75% of the kids were born the first side of the calendar year. So January to June, because for obvious reasons, if you have a kid that was born in January playing against a kid that's born in December, that's 12 months. Now, 12 months at 14, 13, 15 is massive. 12 months at 17, 18, 19 isn't that big a difference, because you've developed, you've grown, you're probably going to get as tall as you're going to get. But if you put 12 months between a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old and say, go head to head, and actually you're not good enough. Of course you're not good enough. You're nowhere near them in physical capability. You're nowhere near them in terms of speed. You're probably nowhere near them in terms of your mental development. So it is creating that, and the safe haven is letting them play at clubs where you can have elite, you can have a good 2 or 3 kids, but you also have the kids that need to mature. You have the kids that are probably a step below, but they're in that squad. They're all learning together. And then there's a natural fall away by the 13, 14, because the kids who are just not enjoying it will stop away. And the kids who want to get better will have opportunities. But putting that in their hands at 13 for no apparent reason doesn't make sense. And I would have said from day one, you scrap 13s, you scrap 14s. I'll argue 15s. I'll say, okay, if we're giving each side 15s, 16s, 17s, 18s, perfect. We as a club say, yeah, we are absolutely more than happy to develop kids from 5 to 15 and then let them on their way and into an environment that is correct. i.e., they're going into an environment with full-time coaches. They're going into an environment which will look after them, whether it's medical, whether it's anything else. They're not coming in for 6 months and then being told you're not good enough. They're on a journey. What that looks like, it probably has to be ironed out. But I don't see how that can't be a better option than bringing them in 13 and discarding them at 14, 15, 16. It doesn't make sense to me. And no one involved in underage football can tell me it makes sense, because they'll say they'll get a better quality of coach. And I say, well, then come into the clubs and coach the kids in the clubs. Put that money into it. Go into your communities and go into the local leagues or Lucan or Maynooth and put 3, 4 full-time coaches in. Invest in your own people. Bring in full-time underage coaches to go across the communities and then take them in at 15 when they're ready.
Well, put it this way, if Bohemians having a link with Kevin's and Pat's having a link with whatever, Cherry Orchard or Belvedere, whatever clubs they're having a link with, Joey's, it means they have confidence in the coaching of those clubs as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up to an age, I think, a little bit.
I don't know what changed that all of a sudden those DDSL clubs that were doing particularly well, and the nature of football, that there is more and more people getting involved in underage in qualifications, getting their badges. Like, you know as well as I do, when we started kicking ball, and my dad has never done a coaching badge in his life, but he knows more about football than 90% of the people I know, because he's lived through it. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. But the majority of schoolboy underage clubs now have invested volunteers who are going out, getting qualifications and bringing those kids up. So it's not a case of, because they moved to an elite underage League of Ireland setup, they're now getting qualified football coaching or qualified coaches. They're getting that at schoolboy. Absolutely, maybe not to the level, and I appreciate that, and I'm not in every way saying that. There will be a step up, but that step up can happen at 15 when you can actually work with them.
But that's still, Robbie, that step up would probably be more in terms of quality, because, say, take Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians, they're obviously going to have, let's be honest, more quality players as a whole than any of the DDSL clubs as a whole.
Yeah.
So a lot of that's to do with the quality level as well, isn't it, of the actual talent that have been...
Absolutely.
That have come through various clubs across that level, like, if you get me.
Yeah, and like, we're I don't know, we're 4 or 5 years into this now, and like, I don't know how many Rovers kids have gone from 15 to first team at Rovers. I don't think it's been a lot. I don't know. I know from talking to my brother Johnny, there hasn't been a lot of kids.
Yeah, not too many at this minute. Bowes and
at any of the clubs. I know some of them have brought through kids, but there isn't exactly this conveyor belt that we were promised, that when we get these in at 15, they start come through. We get a lot of kids that have gone in through the cycle at 15, have come back out and gone back in. I've heard a lot of them, and as Johnny calls them, the late developers, and there's lots of them spread around the league at the present.
What happens, Robbie, as well sometimes, like with Bray, for example, they lost a couple of players to Brighton fairly quickly. They barely played a first team game for Bray, so they've come through, say Joseph's or whoever, and they might play 10 games if they're lucky. Then they're gone to the Premier League or whatever, to Brighton in this case, as an example, as 15, 16-year-olds. So a lot of them don't actually go through, if you get me, and actually play for.
Yeah, they don't.
And maybe Bray get more compensation money there as well. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, well, I know.
Just what you said about the Dundalk thing for 6 months. I don't think that young lad improved at Dundalk an awful lot in the 6 months he was there.
Listen, that's only. I'm not going to speculate how much he improved in 6 months, but I'm pretty sure some of that 6 months was COVID as far as that. But anyway, yeah. And I know Gary Cronin, I know Gary well. I played Gaz, and Gaz was with Johnny in a couple of places. Listen, it's no one's fault from a League of Ireland club point of view. This has been, in my opinion, something that's been forced on them, and they've been told, look, suck it up. And someone said, right, we'll embrace it. We'll try and do it right. We'll try and invest. Yes, this can be good for Irish football. Someone said, like, if you look at the likes of Stephen Kenny, who's gone in, the Irish manager, like, I don't think Stephen spent a hell of a lot of time looking after or interested in the 1970s and 15s when he was managing Dundalk. I think he was pretty keen on qualifying for Europe and winning leagues. So, and I don't, and that's no disrespect to Stephen, but I think the nature of the League of Ireland is that to exist, and that's, and it's actually to that. I've seen someone put up a graph recently around the finances around the league. To exist in the League of Ireland, to be financially stable or financially sustainable, you need to be playing in Europe, because the money, the prize money, it's pittance. The grounds, I know even pre-COVID, but you're not getting the crowds in. So there's never a sustainable model in League of Ireland to then invest 200-300 grand into an underage setup. It's never, it doesn't, like, and I know
recently a great example of that as well. Like, you know, they put it all on the line to try and get into Europe and win leagues. Yeah. They do it 1 year and suddenly look where they are now. And
like,
they're a big
I think
team.
every club I played for at some stage when they did the administration, I'm pretty sure every club in the League of Ireland in the last 15 years has been in financial bother, financial. And I think,
weren't, put it that way.
No, I can't. And again, you're putting a group of kids into a club who, and again, like, I know the cost. So we played before, and I know we're probably time here. I know we played down in Westport. Unbelievable facilities. I was blown away. Tremor, unbelievable facilities. Evergreen, Salt Hill, Devon. I'm looking at these clubs all across the country, and I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, these are as good as anything I've played in from a League of Ireland. Yeah, like, and I'm looking at it going, mother of God. But the second thing is, to travel down to them places costs us a bloody fortune. I'm not being smart. 3 grand, 4 grand on a coach. You want to stop and get the lads a bit of grub. You need like, there's all these additional costs, and the League of Ireland clubs have been quite clear in this. They don't have the money to be sending kids up and down the country playing these games. They just don't. So again, it's the regionalising or the improving an underage schoolboy section and making it fair for the regional teams. The SFAI Cup, to me, is the best cup in the country. It's the best clubs from all around the country, an opportunity to play each other. Giving each of these clubs the opportunity to try and do what we've done in League Cup, and we emulate and we look at Kevin's and Rovers and the better school, but the Home Farms over the years, the Belvederes. We looked at them and said, right, what can we do to be as competitive as them? That when Cherry Orchard or Belvedere or Home Farm come knocking at the door at 11, 12, that our parents will say, do you know what? I'm happy here. I think he's getting as good an education.
That's probably worse in a little way, actually, is it, for you, when some of the other clubs within your section actually come and cherry pick the players for one.
But this is the one, and this is the bit that I actually love being asked, because no, it's not. That's okay. That's
really?
Reality. Yeah, absolutely. Because then I have a parent who doesn't trust what I'm doing or doesn't trust us as a club, and it's absolutely their choice to leave. The problem I always had is, if that bar is unachievable, which is League of Ireland under 13 for me, it's not a fair conversation. So I had letters from kids, and I won't name because they'd be slaughtered, and they were like very, very upset. But the key points were, I don't want to leave, Robbie, but I know this is my chance to play at a higher level, and I have. He couldn't do it with us. He couldn't do it with me because our team couldn't play underage League of Ireland. So he had to leave because he's seen his peers going, and if I stay, am I left behind? And that's the bit that always cut for us. There shouldn't be, like, I know people have spoken about, is there an ability to let clubs like Leagues join the underage League of Ireland setup? Kevin, I know Alan spoke about that. Absolutely. I don't see why that wouldn't be a logical step. Because, you know, you probably have a better list than me, but I played against Kilkenny, don't exist. I played against Dublin City, don't exist. I played against a lot of League of Ireland clubs that don't exist. So there's nothing to be said in the morning that, and I won't say a Bowes or a Pats, please God, because I like League of Ireland, but there's going to be Limerick happened last year. Limerick collapsed. There's no more stable League of Ireland clubs than there is schoolboy clubs. So there's absolutely no reason why you can't allow elite clubs, or sorry, elite's the wrong word, schoolboy clubs play at this elite level.
Yeah.
And allow them achieve that, and allow a League Slip or a Home Farm or a Kevin's, or put teams. And ultimately, they're just going to make
more competition as well, though, isn't it? That's the good thing about it, too.
Well, it does. It stops this logic of, because you are a League of Ireland club, you don't have promotion, you don't have relegation. And again, they talk about developing, and they talk about this is to develop kids. And I'm thinking, is it? Like, what are you doing by if you win the league, are you celebrating that? Because obviously teams won the 15s and they celebrated that. But then I'm saying, but if you're a team that hasn't tried to win that league, what have you achieved? And then I hear someone saying, well, actually, I brought in my kids at 13 and I got them all the way to 17. And I get alarm bells, because I'm thinking, you've actually identified the best kids at 13, and not one of those kids in those 3-4 years has dipped below. And there's not any other kid in your region that hasn't shown to be good enough to come into that setup. And someone, I read a story a while back, I was laughing because someone was asked about Wes Hewlin being involved in the underage setup, and I was on to Vinnie Butler, and this is like everyone in schoolboy in Irish will tell you, it is 100% harder to get out of an underage setup squad than it is to get into one. Because once you're in, there's an ethos around how you train, how you play, set pieces, it's squad dynamic, that you don't really want to upset by pulling kids out, pulling new kids in. So if you get into the under 14 Irish team, there's a very, very good chance you're going to be in the 15s, 16s, 70s, 80s, kind of regardless of how well you've developed. And I know that's unfair on some, but that is the reality. And Vinny did a great piece. He came to us and he showed us clippings of Kennedy Cup squads and Irish underage clubs. And he kind of did a comparison. He goes, this is the under 30 of the same age groups. He goes, this is what the underage under 40s look like. This is the underage. And it was like 14s, 15s, 16s, same squad. Under 70s, a brand new squad. So there wasn't anyone left. And it's mind blowing that we're still making them same mistakes. So, as I said, I say this to people, I could talk for days like this. Genuinely, I absolutely admire anyone involved. And that's why I never try and fall out with anyone involved in any underage League of Ireland or any underage football, because I understand the challenges go into it. I absolutely appreciate the effort. My wife Gillian and all my little lads, they suffer big time because it consumes me sometimes, and especially when football gets back, it's week in, week out. But as I said, I want to be sitting back in 20, 30 years' time, not caring about football, watching us play and saying, do you know what, Jesus, there we are competing, playing against the best, playing a good brand of football with young Irish kids developed the right way. And I think that has to start with the government putting more money into these clubs, the League of Ireland clubs themselves being asked to either ring fence or being given the money to invest in building facilities. And I think you start there. You have to put bricks and mortar down. You have to have buildings in place. They have to be regionalised. Like, we played up in Adamstown last year. I'm losing years now. Can't remember what it was. Alan talked about it last week. We played Kevin's in the one of the finals. Can't remember what it was. It was after the All Ireland, and they beat us. They were the younger Kevin's team. They were excellent. They were brilliant that day. They beat us. But we arrived, and I got the phone call. Match was off. I said, all right. Yeah, we didn't book the pitch. And I said, what do you mean didn't book the pitch? Yeah, DDSL didn't book the pitch off the FEI, and they don't have a pitch available. And I was like, who owns this place? Someone's like, well, it's Adams, like, not Adamstown, but it's Abbottstown.
Oh, Abbottstown, yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ, the size of this place. And I'm like, but what do you mean we didn't book the pitch? Yeah, the match was off. We're going to try and find a new venue. We didn't actually book the pitch. And then we arrived, and someone said, oh, we sorted, we got the Astro. And I was like, grand. And now we can't use the dressing rooms. We haven't booked the dressing rooms, so there's no dressing rooms available. And I was saying to myself, what's going on? And that's the bigger lying issue than anything else going on at the moment. The lack of oversight, the lack of investment, the lack of real football people making those decisions. And I think if Alan Caffrey was brought into it, if Vinnie Butler was brought into it and raised that age group, I'm sick of suits, I'm sick of jackets, I'm sick of crests on people's jackets.
Yeah, people that know what it's like and have been there more.
I've seen it, and I've seen Grassroots, and seen both sides, have played League of Ireland, understand the culture of League of Ireland, understand the challenges of League of Ireland, understand the limits and the limitations these clubs are under, and the stress. Like Jim Hanley looks after Longford. I know Jim puts his heart and soul into keeping Longford afloat. I met the lads when we were looking after when I went to draw it, even though you didn't remember me there. I remember the lads looking after that club, and they were like volunteers putting their heart and soul into keeping that club afloat. And they just at present do not have, in my opinion, the resources to then go and properly develop these kids. And that's the challenge. And until they're given that, and it's cyclical. I think they get the investment, they invest in the younger kids, they get that community. Those then become the next generation of kids, supporters, and I think everything builds. But I think at present, just planking the 13s League of Ireland underage structure on top of an underage structure without any real conversation, with any real regard for each other, has just created tension, and it's just created bigger problems. And that's the reality at the moment. And hopefully, I don't want to be negative, but hopefully good people now get involved, and people at the top table that are just there to get free match tickets to Aviva can start actually doing stuff and making the right calls and making right decisions. Because I think it's good that it's becoming so topical. I think people are really getting far better interest in it, and I think it will become something that I'm hopeful there will be change in my poor pops is 70. I don't know if he'll see it, but I'm hoping I see change. Fingers crossed. Yeah, get the vaccine and he'll be grand.
Yeah. Look, Robbie, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed that. Very riveting and interesting discussion. Good insight for me as well. So between the connection.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, absolutely. No,
thanks very much.
Absolutely, Jay. Thanks a million.